Hey everyone, I am Mark Chen. This is Melissa Peterson, and welcome to our well-played Let's Play of Lands of Lore. We are going to basically play through parts of the game, talk about Lands of Lore's influence to the adventure RPG genre, I guess, and also its influences, and talk about the different mechanics and everything, and how we used to play them as we were younger. Not quite kids, but younger.
Younger, yeah. So Lands of Lore is a Westwood Studios game from the early 90s. I want to say 1993, 94-ish. And it was kind of a cool game for the time because it... or I thought it was cool. Maybe it wasn't cool, but I thought it was cool because it was kind of a combination of the adventure game genre and the RPG game genre, which we see a little bit more now. But at the time, it was kind of groundbreaking because RPGs were usually all combat and adventure games were all puzzles. So this is kind of a nice mix of both.
Yeah, and the main points of our Let's Play are basically just to showcase the game and how influential it was, and how it sort of like heralded a lot of sort of genre conventions these days. But then also to explain just that, players when they play a game are always not just engaged with the game itself, but are also engaged with all these external resources, whether it's relying on family members or whatever. These days is a lot of the web stuff. And we'll be talking about how we used to play this game in terms of that type of behavior of sort of this sort of meta gaming of the game.
Exactly. So we wanted to start off and showcase just how glorious the sound and video design was on this. So I'm going to play the introduction and we'll talk about it a little bit.
Virgin Interactive Entertainment presents
the
Westwood Studios production
that is Jean-Luc Picard,
The Throne of Chaos.
That's one of the great things about this game is they got Patrick Stewart. But if you can hear the music, they pretty much spent all their money on Patrick Stewart and not on the music design. The rest of it, so pretty much all of the dialogue is audio dialogue rather than text dialogue, which even now you don't see that. That doesn't happen anymore. But it was kind of cool because I feel like it was one of the first ones that really did that.
Yeah. Well, and also like CD games were just sort of nascent. Myst came out in like 92 or something like that. And it was one of the first CD games. This is one of the first CD RPGs. And I think Westwood Studios were like, oh my God, we have all this space. Let's throw in some digital recordings of voice.
Yeah, exactly.
My liege, it is.
I think the other cool thing about this is you can see it's pixel art, but it is so high quality and really beautiful.
Come here first.
Some of the newer pixel art games, I feel like they almost try not to be this nice looking. I guess it takes a lot of time though. I've done a little bit of pixel art and it is hard.
The time has
Yeah.
come.
That's something that Westwood was really good at. So while they were making this, right around the same time, they were doing a bunch of adventure games. So everyone knows Westwood for Command and Conquer, but actually they also made a lot of in the 90s some adventure games and this RPG series, adventure games, Legend of Kyrandia. And I think that art style, they must have had the same artist for both series or something, because the art style is just very, very similar to Legend of Kyrandia.
I want it now.
Yeah, they definitely all look similar. And I feel like actually, depending on how many of them you've played, you'll notice little Easter eggs. They'll put like the same people in the background of things from their different games. I feel like even their later ones, though, were the same sort of beautiful pixel art style, even when other games were starting to go like 3D. CGI kind of stuff. They were still doing those.
Right. Except, well, I mean, eventually Command and Conquer turned into full motion video. Like they hired actors to, you know, be generals and stuff like that, right? In Command and Conquer.
Right.
This mask will serve me well.
So what's going on is, you know, Patrick Stewart was the king. We saw him talking to some advisor about, you know, troubles, basically. And then this witch is the main archvillain who was able to acquire a ring that lets her basically transform herself or shape change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've set us up with a lot of information in that introduction. And it's kind of interesting because the introduction is actually, you can see it is completely optional. So that's a whole bunch of information that we wouldn't have. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have information that's going to help us play better, but there was a lot of thought put into sort of the backstory of all of this. I'm going to start a new game, though, so I can show
Wait, before you do that, can I ask you,
Yes.
What is Lore of the Lands?
That's a good question that I feel like I knew back in the day, and I don't anymore.
Not much is known of the beginning of the land, for the chronicles do not extend much beyond the...
Apparently, it's a lot of voiceover work by Patrick Stewart telling us even more backstory.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
The picture of the golden age has been
Mm-hmm.
left by the Dracoid.
Okay, we can skip it.
Yes, I think it goes on for fairly long too. And one of the things that I'm not sure if we'll have a chance to show it off this time, but there's a lot of that voiceover backstory work in various parts of this game. You can find books randomly, and Patrick Stewart just tells you all about what's going on. It's almost written like a novel rather than a video game, to be honest. So if we start a new game, I want to talk a little bit about the character creation, because anymore we're used to having a lot of control over our character creation. And back then, this was it. We had 4 guys who had various different attributes. And we have King Richard here being impatient on who we're planning to be. So, you know, you've got your classic mage, your classic fighter. You've got this guy, Kieran, who I used to play quite a bit. He says he's sneaky and quick on his feet, but I'm not honestly sure that it does much. I'm not sure that those are actual attributes. They may be embedded in there, but they're not obvious when you're playing. And then you've got your all-around character.
Because, like, you know, look at the stats. Who would ever choose Kieran unless there's like a 4th hidden sneakiness or dexterity attribute or something, right?
Yeah, well, because I think he's your rogue character, so he presumably is better at picking locks and things like that. But I'm not 100% convinced that it does a whole heck of a lot, to be honest.
Maybe he unlocks more dialogue options or something.
It's possible, or I think it's probably likely that in the background, so they hide a lot of the stuff that now you can kind of see. They hide a lot of the like roles for whatever. So I think it's entirely possible that when you try to pick some of the dialogue options, that he has a better chance at some of them than some of these other guys do. I used to play him a lot, mostly just because he was the one, even though I know he's a guy, he was the least guy of the 4 of them, like the most likely to be secretly female. and so that's why, and he's a cat, so you know that's pretty cool too. So that's why I picked him. I didn't care if he was really bad. That was why I picked him. This guy Conrad is the most well-rounded, and he seems to be kind of the obvious choice if you're not really sure what you're going to be up against, because the might guy isn't super good at magic, and then the magic guy is not really good at might, and Conrad can do both, which is useful later in the game. So I'm just going to pick him. But there you have it. That's the extent of your character creation. The end.
Yeah.
Not a lot of control on that one. So I'm going to load a game just to get us moving. And here's how you start the game. So I've got almost no money because I bought myself a mace while I was in there and some healing supplies. One of the things, though, that I think is actually fairly interesting with this game is the inventory management. So this is your inventory, and there's only, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 spaces, and nothing stacks. Up to this point, all we've done is we've been given the idea that we need to go and make sure that this evil witch, Scotia, doesn't do bad things. And then we've been told that we need to go see this guy, Sir Roland, in the south. And that's all we've been told. We don't have anything on our map. Here's our map. Nothing on our map tells us where to go. There's no real hint situation going on here. It's very different from today's games where there's always sort of in-game, I'm trying to think of the right word, but there's hints in the map. So if you're playing World of Warcraft, there's your little exclamation point on top of somebody who's going to give you a quest, or there's on the map there's a big sort of bluish circle showing you where the quest needs to be fulfilled. None of that was standard at this point. This was still at the point where having this auto mapper was pretty high tech. You were pretty excited you didn't have your graph paper out on the side, that you were drawing your own map on. So
yeah. So the game is it's really interesting to me, actually, because it seems like the game is it affords different things than what we're used to these days, and it's kind of inconsistent, maybe, or you argue that it's inconsistent. Like if you look at the inventory, like it's so ridiculously cumbersome.
Yes.
Like, there isn't like an inventory screen where you can see, basically everything that you're holding all at once. You have to scroll through these things with the little left and right arrows.
Right.
And it's just so crazy, and it's all visual too. There's no, like, you don't know what that piece of paper is unless you actually look at it, right?
Right.
You don't know what those the herbs are and everything unless you know, right, from experience. But then at the same time, it does have an auto map. Like it could have done like what the Gold Box games, the SSI Gold Box games did, which is like it has an auto map, but then it sort of forces you to make a map on your own, or some of the older games like wizardry games and things like that, right? Where you kind of have to make a map on your own. I just find that really interesting. And the same thing with the character creation we were just talking about. Just you have those 3 stats, but then you don't really know, all the underlying math and everything. So the game kind of makes you like work to game the system. I guess it's difficult to game the system.
Right. They put some pretty crazy restrictions on you, so it's a lot harder to actually, like you said, to game the system. It's hard to even know how to prepare for things because they didn't have as much wide open information like we're used to now. If I play a game now and they don't let me stack my inventory, I'm like, I don't even want to play, because I'm like, how am I supposed to deal with this very limited inventory? But back then, just even having an inventory that I could look at was kind of cool. So
I wonder if actually the cumbersome inventory could be argued that it was deliberate. Like it's an actual attempt to model inventory realistically. Like when you're in the middle of a fight and you have to dig through your backpack to get something out, it makes that feeling the same, I feel like. Because you have to click these arrows to try to get a little healing thing frantically, right, as you're fighting.
Right. And
imagine it would be true to life.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's bad guys which we'll encounter. Actually, let me start walking so that we can actually encounter some bad guys. There's bad guys that you will like eat your. Oh, here we go. This is another cutscene. So this is the first time, if you didn't watch the intro, that you encounter Scotia and you see her shape-changing powers. She's clearly very sneaky.
Spoiler. Well, I guess 15-second spoiler.
Yeah. So You occasionally run into people like that. Okay, so here's what we're trying to get to. So there's bad guys that will eat your gear, and then you're trying to find your gear in your inventory, and that makes it so much harder to actually play the game, to be honest. You can die really easily, and that is one thing that I should mention. It's permadeath. You have to go back to whatever your last save was. The other thing is that there's a lot of characters that backtalk you. There's a lot of sass.
Yeah, and actually the way you interact with the environment was pretty interesting. Like you clicked on the piece of paper and clicked it on that person, which I don't know. I just find that really interesting. Like there isn't like a use button, you know?
Yeah. It's different from how it is now. So the other thing that I should mention is that they told me I needed to find this guy Timothy to help me out with going to Roland's, that he kind of knows what's going on down there. So we're going to the Gray Eagle Inn. This is all they told me. They said go to the Gray Eagle Inn and get Timothy. This is where it is. I know where it is because I played through it a few times. But if you didn't know, then you're just wandering aimlessly. The other cool thing is that this is not like a fully realized space. It's almost like a cutscene, an interactive cutscene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it looks a lot like an adventure game, you know, like King's Quest or the LucasArts games, or you know, like Legend of Carandia, where you're moving a character around. Except in this case, it's just this sort of like visual representation, I guess, of where you are. It's all animated and everything. That's cool.
Yeah, it's they clearly spent a lot of time on art, which, given that their background was in sort of adventure games as well, it makes sense. So let's see if we can go find ourselves some combat, so that we can talk about the combat situation, because the combat situation is kind of interesting. Though at the same time, oh, forgot about that guy. Oh, here he comes. Okay, so you literally have to click. There's no, oh no, this guy just stole my mace. He just, okay, phew. And our shirt. So that guy just, like, ate my armor. He just made me naked and stole my weapon. So there's all these little bits and pieces throughout the world where now you would be, you'd like find a random, I don't know, log, and especially, so if we use Diablo, you'll like whack a log and there's stuff in it. At this point, they didn't really have that, so you would find weird stuff in the environment that you could click on. I'm not finding one right now, but they would talk about it.
Can you go back to the inventory screen? The character screen?
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
So something that I noticed is that you don't have any pants.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm guessing we're assuming that he just has some generic pants, I guess. Or I think it's more amusing to think of them all running around pantsless. I don't think that would be really very good for you as you move around in combat. Maybe he's got a kilt on. Maybe that's why they just didn't want to tell us about the kilt. I don't know. Because you've got like shoes and bracers and like a shirt and rings, but not pants. So anymore, you get to pick pants usually, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it's like a whole outfit. It's like you put on the leather armor. This does not have that. This was back before we were so jaded and expected our heroes to have pants. So yes. Uh-oh, something's hitting me. Some orcs. So I don't know if you can tell how clunky this is to actually do the combat, but I'm having to just click back and forth, and it tells me how much damage I've done when I click, but it doesn't tell me how much damage I need to do.
Right.
And actually, I think, let's cast a spell. It doesn't tell you how much damage you do when you cast a spell. Got another mace. Let's see if he needs... Nope, that's definitely not better. All right. we'll just hold on to that mace then. Hold on, where am I? That would be good to know. Let's go back this way.
Maybe you should heal. How do you heal?
I don't yet, so I have to go find a hidey hole. You can't sleep at a tavern or anything. You have to. Oh, here we go. Here's a good hidey hole and some bees. We're gonna hold on to these bees, and then you sleep. So you find a place where there's not bad guys, and you sleep. And if you don't do it correctly, so if the bad guys find you, they wake you up, and you don't do such a hot job of healing. I feel like I might be walking in circles. Kind of am.
Did you play any of this style, like first-person kind of game before Lands of Lore?
We played Bard's Tale before this. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Because we played a lot of the Carandia games. That was kind of my jam, was the Carandia games, the adventure games. And no, that's the boat. We don't want to go back to the boat.
And so from like Westwood's reputation, or I guess name, because you had experience with the Carandia games, that got you interested in this game?
So, interestingly, the way that we bought computer games back then was we went to Babbage's and we just looked at every box. It was like buying a book. We just looked at every box and whichever one looked the coolest, that's the one we bought. So we didn't have there wasn't all the press and that kind of thing going on. So this was just one. I think my dad probably picked it out, to be honest. And when here's some more bees. So when he picked it out, then we all played it, because that's just kind of how it worked. So we had already liked. Actually, I'm trying to think if this was our first Westwood one. It might have been our first Westwood. Oh man, he just stole 2 maces in a row. That's just not nice. So, and he took our shirt again. They're just not nice.
Wow, you are almost dead. Oh wait, no, that's magic points.
Yeah, but we're gonna sleep anyway. So, this one might have been our first, actually, because we played the RPGs like the Old Wizardry and Bard's Tale, and then I think when we found this and we liked it so much, we moved on to the Carandia games, and I think I played most of them. We started with Hand of Fate, though, which was, I think, the second one in that series. Mostly just because that is the one that was for sale at that time. And then later I went back and played the first one, which those were around the same time as the Monkey Island games. So I played the Westwood Studios ones rather than Monkey Island, and like Sam and Max Hit Road and things like that. I guess that was a little bit later. Day of the Tentacle, etc.
Yeah.
But I come back to these to the Westwood Studios ones again and again, even now, because they're incredibly well crafted from a narrative perspective. That's not to say that Sam and Max and Day of the Tentacle were not, but they have so much going on, puzzle wise. I feel like they're just really, you wouldn't think that they would be. Oh, that was not very useful healing. Let's get that one. There we go. So that's the other thing. I have no idea how much healing it does until I try it, and then it gave me nothing. Oh no, Timothy's out.
What happened? Someone has attacked.
So, twist, the guy we've been looking for this whole time, his house got attacked.
Did you click on that thing to enter into this zone, or did you just move forward, or what? Or did it just automatically?
I moved forward.
So how are you supposed to know that that's what you can do?
It might have been in the book. I don't know, because I haven't looked at the book in a really, really long time, but I feel like that was one of the things that was in the book. That was actually something I used to do. I was a big book reader on whatever the big packet was. I read that whole packet before I got started. Usually because because we had the one computer and my dad was usually playing, I would go read the book. And then when it was my turn, I felt like I really knew what I was doing.
Did you watch your dad while he was playing, or did you wait to do it on your own?
A little of both. So depending on the game, I feel like on this one, I would watch because the combat element added that, you know, like I kind of knew where the bad guys were, but it didn't really ruin the experience for me. Here we go. Ooh, that was a good hit.
That was a good hit.
Ooh, there's another guy. All right, let's close that so no more guys come in. So
This style of game always makes me paranoid.
why?
Just because, like, you know, someone could sneak up on you and you wouldn't even know, really. Because
Yes.
your back
You
is
just get
turned.
hit, and you that has actually informed my play style on a lot of things. This style of game, because this was one of my early games, I love to hide in corners in games. So a lot of the sort of sneaky games, I really like them, and I'm very good at finding like the one spot where I can just hang out forever. But it's interesting to see my brother play. So my brother is a little bit younger, and he would sort of side seat drive on a lot of these. And he plays very differently than I do. So his play style is a lot less strategic. He's more of a tank. And so I wonder if it's because he didn't play these early games where tanking could get you dead really quickly. So I actually wonder if I play more carefully because the early games gave you almost no leeway on any of this stuff. Ooh,
So, and by tanking, you basically mean like what some people would say run and gun in first-person shooters, which is you just basically run in there, guns blazing, right?
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly how I would describe it. He actually will grind a character until it's way high level. I noticed this first with like Kingdom Hearts or something like that way back. He would grind his character until it was extremely powerful, and then he would take on the boss. And I would just take on the boss when I got to the boss. I didn't try to get higher level, and then I would kite. And so I ran around a lot, and he would try to just walk in there, guns blazing or whatever, sword
Just whack
blazing.
at it, yeah.
Yeah, and just whack at it. And I definitely played very differently. And I think it's because I started with these games where, you know, if we die right now, we have to go back to where we started at the castle, which is, you know, 10 minutes ago. So to me, death is not something you ever want. But then I don't play hardcore mode on anything, so I kind of enjoy not having to do that. But at the same time, it does inform my playstyle quite a bit. I wanted to show this piece of the game because it kind of introduces the idea that this is combat related, but also more. It's an adventure RPG. So we have options here. This guy, he looks pretty big and powerful. We can either attack him, we can run away, or we can bluff. So this is, I suspect, where that sneakiness comes in on that other character. But because it's so hidden from, like, because the actual mechanics are hidden from us, I actually have no idea if this is what happens. But so the last time I played this, he failed at bluffing.
So it isn't, I mean, that's really interesting. Like, there must be some random number thing going on or something. Mm-hmm. Or you triggered something this time that you didn't do last time or something like that. And you're using the same character, right?
Yep, I'm using the same character, and I've got all the same stuff.
What does rogue relate to? Like,
I think it's lockpicking, to be honest. I think that might be the extent of it.
Maybe it's missile weapons?
Possibly. There are throwing stars. So maybe it's the throwing stars, missile weapons, like sling.
Yeah.
There might be.
I mean, that would be consistent at least, because the other two are combat related.
Right. I don't know. I actually haven't paid that close attention because the information they give you is really just this progress bar. You have no idea how many orcs or whatever, how many combat situations you need to be in. I guess I've cast that spark spell twice, so it got me this much in mage points. So this is actually a fairly interesting thing, though, because it reacts to your play style.
Yeah.
So if I were to use him as a mage, he would have way more mage points.
Right.
But since I mostly use him as a fighter, I get a lot more fighter points.
And that's a precursor to Oblivion. Oblivion has the same sort of, use the skill and you level up in it.
Yeah. That's actually something I really like about that game in particular, and the Bethesda games in particular, is that it feels more realistic to me that if I'm going to spend all my time blacksmithing, that I get really good at blacksmithing, but I'm not super good at anything else. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. But you end up, like in Oblivion, you end up, sprinting and hopping all over the place.
Yes. So this is a lot more simplistic, obviously, but I actually would love to see this in a game today where it's that same style as Oblivion, but they've simplified it to maybe not 3, maybe more than 3, maybe it's 10.
Yeah. I think Dungeon Siege has a similar thing.
I haven't played that one.
It's good.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out then because I actually really like, and I like when they don't make you specialize. We always used to joke that I wanted to be a thieving warrior mage, that was like my ultimate character. And when games like Oblivion started coming out and they let me be a thieving warrior mage, I discovered it was really bad because it took me 800 years to do anything.
Right.
But at the same time, this has simplified it to the point where I can kind of be a thieving warrior mage without really affecting my gameplay too much. It obviously later in the game, if I've spent too much time doing one of these things, like I won't be able to pick the locks that I need to pick, or I won't be able to cast the spells that I need to cast. So this one actually, I feel like maybe that's why I want to be a thieving warrior mage in these other games, is that this one kind of allowed me to do that. It allowed me to despecialize in a way that still allowed me to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just show you what happens when we go see Roland. Oops.
Okay. And then I want to talk about playing with other people.
Awesome.
Some more. So you found a secret door.
Mm-hmm. There was a
guy in it.
So the cool thing is that there were secret doors. There's secret doors all through this whole game, and sometimes the buttons are hard to see to open the secret doors. But if you look at the map, it shows you where the buttons are.
Yeah.
So that's one way that they dealt with the hint situation, because otherwise you would be completely frustrated.
So how does it show up on the map? Like a line or something?
Yes. Hold on. I will see if it's still there to show you. So see this little
right.
Like, line.
Yep.
Button lever, and it will actually show you secret walls that you can walk through. The other thing that's nice is you can see that it named it Roland's key, so I don't have to worry about remembering what this key looks like. I mean, it's right here, so I don't really anyway, but that's a nice thing about this interface. Ooh, and he left us a whole bunch of money, too, and a saber.
It's also interesting that you have to click on the chest over and over.
Yes, instead of it, like, popping up.
Yeah.
This is not a very good saber. We're just going to put it over here. And I'm already tired of managing my inventory. Okay, so let's actually pull up. I'm going to pull up a dungeon that's a little bit later because I want to show one of these puzzles. So at this point, we've gone back to the castle with the information from Roland. We discovered that Scotia is poisoning King Richard. Oh no, and we have to come up with an elixir. At the same time, we're given this guy in the middle. So this guy in the middle is your better spellcaster, but you don't get to pick him. He just kind of shows up in your party, kind of the way Timothy did. And then this girl that we found her in the dungeon. So she was part of a cutscene where, truthfully, I think that there's potential that you could miss her if you didn't go down the right path, if you didn't explore the map fully.
How do you know she's not Scotia in disguise?
You don't, except for that you found her in like a insect pod, like she was going to get eaten.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think you kind of assume that she's not Scotia because she was about to be eaten by bugs.
Yeah. If you don't have the lantern, then all this is just dark?
You can kind of see, but not well. Actually, if I you can see that it's getting dimmer.
You have to show it.
I've got lamp oil that I can add to it. I actually wonder if you didn't go to the thief cavern, if you would end up getting a lantern. I've never tried it, though. It's entirely possible that you could end up with no lantern, too.
Right. And on the top left, a sort of scroll showing the spells that you have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's how all the spell casting works. It's a little frustrating, actually, because if you need to heal and then you want to attack immediately after that, you have to be sort of clicking in 5 different places at the same time.
Right. It's so mouse-driven, this game, except for you can use these arrow keys, it looks like, right? Which is
yes. I'm using the number pad for those.
bizarre, like that they would have those there, unless you're meant to click on those arrows with the mouse, I guess.
I think that's what we did back in the day. I totally think I was clicking on the arrows the whole time.
So, like, you could play this whole game if you wanted to with just a mouse.
Conceivably, yes.
It would translate well to a touchscreen, though.
I think it would. That's actually some of the old Bard's Tale games are available on touchscreen now. But I wanted to pull this one up because I feel like this is one of the first examples of sort of a puzzle. It's not a great puzzle. There are other puzzles that are harder, but you've got these 2 dragon things missing an eye. And earlier we've picked up things that are called Emerald Eye and Sapphire Eye. And this is one of those things that, and now there's a caveman guy. Okay, phew. And then, clearly they're meant to go in there. But what was interesting about this is that once... she's poisoned.
Did either guy go into either dragon?
I haven't. I think so. I haven't double checked that. Let's depoison her. So if you go in further, so here's what it looks like if you don't have a lantern. Let's go in the hole for a second and get a lantern going. And that's what it looks like with full lanterning, with full oil. So once you reach a certain point past those 2 doors, the other pathway becomes inaccessible to you. And there's stuff that's only on one side or the other. So
I hate that.
So you kind of want to... so she's rogue. She's good at lockpicking and stuff.
I see.
So it's always sort of a gamble. And this is one of the things that... So when I first played this, my siblings and I would play together, and we would all sort of want to weigh in on which way should we go, just in case the other way shuts off. There's another one of those rat guys. Go back this way. And there's a lot of traps and things. So there'd be a lot of times where we would be having a conversation about what the best way to play a section is, or what kind of what's the best solution to a puzzle. So here's one of those secret walls. You can just walk through the wall. You can see there's an S.
Right.
And I don't actually believe that connects to that other one. Actually, it looks like, yeah, so we've already gone too far. As soon as we went through the secret door, that other pathway became closed to us.
Right.
So hopefully there was nothing we needed over there.
The way that the map, I mean, it shows you where the secret walls are and where the levers are and all that. But if you miss them while walking around and then you open up your map to see where they are, like, it seems to me that like that would encourage this sort of behavior where you're constantly looking at your map, Yes.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but I do that a lot. I'll go around a corner and then I look at my map, and then I find a hidey hole and I look at my map.
Yeah. And later games like Diablo let you sort of just have a map overlay.
Uh-oh. All right, we got to run away. We're going to heal now. Oh, so that's the other thing. Even if I found a place to hide and sleep, if I don't have at least a little bit of my hit points, I won't heal. Oh, here they are. And she's gone again.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was not so fun. Oh, yay. So that's how you make a level. You can see my spellcasting skills have gotten better.
Yeah. You were also saying that you and your siblings would sort of deliberate on what to do next and everything. How much time did you spend talking before you made decisions?
Not very long because we were siblings. I think that if I'd been playing with friends, it might have been a little bit more of a democracy.
So was basically one person in control of the keyboard and mouse, and the others were just sort of watching?
Pretty much. It ended up being sometimes we would trade off, but most of the time, since I was the oldest, I was the one in control, but we would all sort of shout at each other about the puzzles.
Yeah. That's how I played too in college. I played with these two, I guess, dorm mates. So the three of us would basically play this game where one person was in charge of sort of movement and everything, and then people would. I mean, it sounds almost exactly the same, where we were all sort of deciding what to do and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because it was before the time of online forums and things for games, that you kind of had to do that because you couldn't go look up a cheat code or whatever.
Right. So you needed more people's brains working on the puzzles together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
There's also just the fact that so many single player games are actually played with multiple people. So even if the game is designed as a single player game, often in actual practice, it's sort of a multiplayer game because you have people in the same room.
Right. And that happens, I feel like back then it happened a lot more often because there weren't as many multiplayer games, even side-by-side multiplayer.
Yeah.
It was a lot more single player games. Oh, here's the chest. So,
I mean, this game is practically pre-web.
Pretty darn close, yeah.
I mean, I remember when Doom came out and we played it multiplayer, we had to go to Radio Shack and buy these special adapter cards for our computers. And have these BNC cables that connected them all together so that they could play together, where you don't have to do that anymore because all the computers these days are just connected to the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And back then you didn't really have that. I remember playing Might and Magic, one of the Might and Magics. Oh, that was a bad idea. Why did I do that? I clicked the button and I got attacked by a fireball. So that's
why would you not do that? You want to know what everything does, right? When you're playing this game.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it's one of those games that if you're coming from a key. I wonder if this is the key to that chest that we just opened using lockpicks.
Oh.
So this is how it definitely emulates an adventure game.
If you click on that button, will you fall down?
Probably. Oh, no. Sometimes you do. You won't. So, I mean, that was ultimately when we would play multiplayer together, that was the kind of thing that we would actually have a conversation about. We'd be like, okay, what happens if we do this? And sometimes you didn't remember, if you're the one at the controls. All right, do you remember where you saw a button? No, but maybe somebody sitting next to you does. So that's kind of the cool thing. I actually kind of miss that about these older games, is playing with your posse, playing whoever that is, and having that social interaction that way rather than interacting with people online. I think there's advantages to both. But that's one of the things about this game in particular. This was, I feel like one of the first games where we did this. The Wizardry and Bard's Tale games, because they were more combat-based rather than puzzle-based, I felt like we didn't really call on each other all that much. This one kind of combined those genres. So we would cheer each other on during the combat situations, and then we'd put our heads together during the puzzles. So that was one of the, I feel like, the really cool things about this game in particular, and why I wanted to talk about this one is that it is kind of a weird mashup that ultimately I gravitate toward games that are similar to this now. So I much prefer things like Fallout and like the BioWare, the other BioWare games. And so those style of games I feel like are a little more like this, where there's puzzles and there's strategies involved that are not just related to the combat. And there's a lot of the more MMO style games, I feel like it's one big grind. So that's why I tend to gravitate more towards these sorts of games rather than, like, of course I've played World of Warcraft, but it doesn't hold my attention as well as a game like this because there's not as many puzzles to solve and things like that.
Right. Are there any puzzles in WoW?
I feel like there was one that I found once. Anyway.
Do you find the style, the interface here, like antiquated? Like you've played Legend of Grimrock, right? So like it does away with all this, I don't even know what you call it, frame, I guess.
Yeah. So hold on, let me pull the map up so we don't get killed while I'm talking about this. So in truth, I kind of miss this old school style, and it's for a totally weird reason, and it's mostly because I can get motion sick when I play games that are first person like that. So even Legend of Grimrock, I have to move pretty slowly through it in order to not give myself motion sickness, which is totally weird. But I kind of miss having all of that around the edges because it helps with that. I know though that that's really weird, and most people probably don't miss it at all. But I didn't have problems with it until we went to that kind of full screen overlay. But again, I tend to play games. I actually, when I can mod a game to make it third person, I do, because I prefer to be able to see my little person. So, so in that way, I do
rather play a top-down game. Like, you were just looking at the map. Would you rather play a game where it was that view?
No, actually, no, because to me that's a maze game. Like that's it. I like third person, like right here. I want to be like behind, up and behind, because that's how I play Diablo and WoW and things like that. So to me that is a very natural. I know how to control my character. So I guess in some ways I miss it, but in other ways I wish it was that like behind that. I've forgotten, like 3/4 view. That would be kind of cool.
So, I mean, Diablo actually is different than WoW because Diablo used isometric.
Right. The isometric is. I like the isometric. I know not everybody does, but I do.
But then that's similar to a top-down view. It's just at an angle,
That angle is important, though. There's one that I was playing that had that top-down view, and I just couldn't get over. I couldn't get over it. It was weird.
The monsters are unending, which is how you can grind in this game, right?
To some extent, yes, and to some extent, no, they're not never ending. So you'll feel like you've cleaned out a place, and sometimes there's still some hidden away. But when there are ways, yeah, and they're all following me too because I've been running around willy-nilly. There are places where you can kind of clear it out. So when we were in the woods earlier and there were those 2 lizard guys, the big lizards that were eating our stuff, those guys don't come back. There's not more of them. And actually, I feel like the orcs don't regenerate there. But in a dungeon like this, there's so many weird little hidey holes that you tend to miss stuff. But it definitely, the density of monsters goes down.
Yeah. You need better armor or something.
Yeah, something. I'm in the basement now. I feel like you don't get better armor for a while. You have to play smart. So I just like that that it also maps. You can move. You can kind of see the dungeon as you go because it lets you look at all the maps together. So you can kind of try to strategize between levels as well.
Have a hint line like the old Sierra games did?
I am not sure. I'm pretty sure I wasn't allowed to call it if there was one.
Because, pre-internet, that means or not pre-internet, but pre-web. So that means pre-game FAQs and stuff like that, right? Pre-discussion.
Yeah.
And so
That's why it was important to have your posse.
Yeah. But I remember, like, for Sierra games, like in the back of a manual of a Sierra game was a hint line. Sierra used to have a magazine, too, kind of like the Nintendo magazine, right? Where it would have hints and stuff like that, too, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think that. Oh.
The wall closed behind you.
The
You
wall
have to go
closed
through
behind
that.
me, and now I have to. Let's throw a rock just in case. There's a button that will move. Oh, where are my rocks? Inventory management is problematic.
Yeah, no kidding.
Nope, I cannot. That rock does not want to go any further. All right, we're jumping in the hole. It wasn't a real hole. They lied to us. It's even still on the map.
If this was real life, I would be so freaked out.
Yeah, this girl, she's really doing emotionally quite well, considering that we pulled her out of a pod to be eaten like she was a hobbit.
Yeah, I guess she has excuses to be useless.
Yeah. Yeah, she's not very good. Well, here's
Hey, go to the button.
So yeah, she's not very useful, but you don't have her for very long. You actually just have her for this dungeon, and then they take her away.
There's no food, right? You don't have to feed yourselves.
No, there's none of that.
There's no wall over there.
I think Legend of Grimrock does have food, which means every time you rest, like you actually have to minimize how many times you sleep because you will get hungry,
Oh, interesting.
If I remember right. I mean, it's been a while since I played it.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering that as well. Well, that was kind of a dud. There was like nothing good in here.
Maybe there's something else hidden, although it didn't show up on the map.
No,
What happened?
he basically webbed me. I couldn't do anything.
I love all the animation and the status effects and everything.
The status effects were really cool. I feel like this was one of the first ones that did the status effects. Ooh,
Ooh, a named Saber.
way better protection than that mace. So the status effects, I was going to say, this was one of the first that like let you get bloody and gross. Before that, it was just, usually it was text. It wasn't a portrait. So this was one of the first where you could really see. Oh no, I did not want to do heal, but I did anyway. Let's freeze these guys. We haven't tried freeze yet.
Cool.
Nice, it hit both of them.
So, I mean, one of the points I think we sort of made, but I think it bears repeating, is just that the game, seems like this combination between adventure and RPG sort of, where, I mean, clearly right now you're just doing combat and dungeon delving and everything, but the way that it sort of hides, like, it doesn't make explicit or transparent everything about combat or how combat works or everything about like how dialogue works and everything.
Right.
Makes you like, I wonder if it forces you to role play more,
Oh yeah, that's boots. That's entirely possible.
Since you're not gaming the system, then you can just focus on the story and make decisions based off of morality or based off of just what you think you should do, not based off of like the game mechanics, not trying to maximize points and things like that.
Right. I think that's actually probably really true because I feel like it rewards you more for playing with the narrative than it does, you know, like you're not getting, there's no points anywhere. It's just how far have you gotten in the game rather than achievements and things like that. So instead of, you know, grinding a bunch in order to get the bug squisher achievement, you're not really even grinding. You're just kind of exploring and trying to move the story along.
Right.
Which I feel like is an important, I feel like that's important. Yes, I just threw shoes. But that got rid of the thing. I don't know what's going on there. This is clearly a puzzle because see, there's this thing here.
Yeah, but you don't know what you're supposed to put in it or anything.
Yeah. I wonder if I missed a thing. Let's see if it's still the same. No, it's still a rock. All right. Maybe there's a thing around here somewhere that tells me about that. So that's the other thing, is that sometimes they give you hints and sometimes you just had to play with it until you figured out what it was. Sometimes you'll find like a scroll. We found that scroll earlier. And sometimes you just don't find anything and you go, all right, I guess I just play with this until clearly freeze is the way to beat those guys.
Yeah, no kidding.
But again, there was no there's no bestiary, so I don't get that. I don't have that, like, let me look up how to beat these guys. It's just trial and error. This is actually, let me just show, this is where you find that girl.
Oh.
And you can see there's like these, so if you open that one, it just like collapses and nasty. And then this one has like a deformed skeleton with eyeballs that falls out of it. So you get super scared about what this is that's moving over here. But if we cut it open, so this is where you find her. So this is one of those things that, you know, if you didn't explore the whole map, you might not necessarily find her. And she's clearly like meant to be part of the narrative. So that's one of those things that I actually find very interesting about this game in particular, is that it really rewarded you. Like I was saying, it really rewarded you for exploring and following along with a narrative rather than just doing combat or just looking for the next puzzle. It really wanted you to look at everything. A little bit further on in the game when you're trying to create the elixir to save King Richard, it's riddles and you have to kind of figure out what the riddles mean, and there's not really anybody to talk to about it. I think they give you a hint like, I'm pretty sure that you should go see this place in the swamp, and that's it. That's like the extent of the hints. So it's kind of an interesting thing because they really just kind of threw you into it and said, go explore and see what you find, and you know, then you'll know what happened.
Yeah.
So, I kind of like that about this game because, like you said, it lets you role play a little bit more. You feel a little bit more connected to the character rather than the character being you, which I feel like is what happens in a lot of MMOs. You become the character.
It's also really, I mean, it makes me think of walkthroughs or what it means to finish a game. Like if you were to look at FAQ or a walkthrough for this game, would the walkthrough basically just have the bare minimum of things that you need to do in order to finish the game, or would it include all the sort of like things that you can find, and so that you have like 100% completion or whatever? I mean, even though that's not a thing yet, but
Right.
You know, so I wonder if like they deliberately made it so that you could play either of those styles.
Well, I think you'd have to play through several times in order to get the bare bones walkthrough, to be honest, because, or I guess maybe if you were just really thorough the first time and then you figured out what was actually needed.
Yeah. I wonder what a speed run of this would look like.
That's an interesting question. I feel like probably we could find the speed run walkthrough now at this point. But at the time, you know, there wasn't that. So I think it's actually kind of an interesting thing, though, too, if you think about, if I go back to inventory management, some of this stuff I'm going to need later, but I don't know what stuff I need later. And I don't have like a home base or anything where I can save the things. So I have to be really aware of my inventory. And when I get to later in the game, like I feel like I don't need all of these bones that I have down here, but I'm pretty sure I need one of them, and I don't remember which one. So, it's one of those things that I'm going to just carry them around with me because they seem like well rendered, which probably means they're important. One of the old tricks from adventure games. If it seems well rendered, you probably need it. So there's that whole thing, and then you're so limited on how much inventory space you have. So you definitely have to sort of pick and choose what you're carrying around with you.
Yeah, that's something we should talk about. You can screw yourself up in this game. Like you can irreversibly mess up.
Yes, that's actually something that I didn't show in that beginning section. You were asking about going to that vendor. If you go to that vendor, you can buy a bow really early in the game. But if you buy that bow, you don't have enough money to go back to King Richard. And there's not really a way to earn that money. So then you end up stuck and you have to load again. So you can totally mess yourself up in this game if you don't do it right. Which makes it really, that's why I have 1,100 saves. If I show you my saves, I've got just save after save after save. I think I typically keep about 5 saves when I'm playing this style of game, just in case.
Yeah.
Before I throw anything away, just in case. I remember a game about Germany. It was like an RPG in the middle of Dark Ages Germany.
Darklands. Was it Darklands?
I think so. Maybe. There was a game, and it was an RPG, and they were starting to move towards photos for your guys. And you could get sanctuary in a cathedral. That's the part I remember, is asking for sanctuary in a cathedral and not realizing what that meant. And then all of a sudden everybody wanted to kill me, and I couldn't get out of the cathedral. So that was another one. That's another example of where you can screw yourself up completely and then have to just load. So it's interesting to see how that affects my play style when I play this versus when I'm playing any other game, really. How much time I spend actually thinking about how I'm playing and should I keep this? And I think it pushes you to be a lot more thoughtful with how you play, and a lot more aware of saving.
Cool. Is there anything else about the game that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I think that was a lot of our main points, and maybe too many examples of each of our main points. I just thought it was despite the fact that it is old and there are some interface issues, I think that it is aged remarkably well, especially given that a lot of games right now are going back to this style of art. There's a lot of the pixel games now. It's a really nice combination of genres, I think.
There are a lot of dungeon crawler games on Steam right now.
Yeah, I see a lot of dungeon crawlers even in like the App Store. There's a lot of dungeon crawlers. Those are more roguelike usually in the App Store, but at the same time, I think that it's like this genre is kind of coming back. Kind of the way the adventure games have come back a little bit too.
And it's great when, I would love to see this more on the role play side and puzzle side. So more games need to be like this or going in that direction. I guess that reminds me, have you ever played Ultima Underworld?
I have not. Is that this style?
It's 3D. I mean, it's first person, but you can move the camera around and everything. It isn't stuck in this viewport.
Right.
But if I remember right, there's a lot more, or there's not, maybe not compared to this, but compared to like Eye of the Beholder, for example, or Wizardry, there's more role play elements to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I find interesting about role-playing games now, though, in comparison to this one. I feel like there's way less of that role-playing they what they really mean is like dungeon crawler. They don't actually mean role playing game. Because
Right. Well, for certain games. I mean, Bethesda are. I think a lot of their games are very much about exploration and maybe not role playing in the sense that. Well, I mean, Fallout 4 was. I'm doing a let's play of that actually, but Fallout 4, the dialogue. I mean, I felt it was a little superficial for what it could have been.
Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time with that one yet, but that's the feeling I get from a lot of the quote unquote role playing games right now, is that while there are some that are doing it well and are creating roles that players want to inhabit, others are it's almost completely irrelevant whether there's a story or not. It's really just a dungeon crawler hack and slash kind of
right, like Diablo.
So, yeah, exactly. So like Diablo, even though Diablo has a narrative you can play through, it doesn't feel like a role-playing game. I think even though there's a story behind your character, it maybe it's because it's not first person. That would be an interesting thought. You kind of feel like you're just controlling a hack and slash character rather than really inhabiting a role. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought, because even World of Warcraft, I feel like I was saying earlier, like this game, I feel like I am Conrad in a game where you have more control over your character creation and the name and how it looks. You're creating yourself within the game, so it's almost not a role-playing game anymore. It's almost just you game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an interesting dichotomy maybe between what we think of as role-playing games now versus what was a role-playing game then.
Yeah.
I think that this is interesting because of a lot of these things, which are of course true about some of the other games at the same time, but like you were talking about, like Doom is not really sitting on this genre edge that Lands of Lore is. And I think it's unique in that way because it's a Westwood Studios. So Westwood Studios was doing some really interesting stuff in adventure gaming and things like that. So they were sort of uniquely positioned to create a game like this.
Do you think, I mean, Westwood basically became RTS creators,
Mm-hmm.
But early on they were doing adventure games, this role-playing game, and RTS games, real-time strategy games. And I wonder if Blizzard decided to do a game like this, would they have been able to make a game like this? Because they were doing RTSs early on with Warcraft, and then they tried an adventure game and then canceled it. I wonder, and obviously they did Diablo, which is a very different type of RPG, like you were just talking about. But I wonder if they were to make a dungeon crawler, like what it would look like, if it would be like this.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see, because like you said, Westwood started out with the RTS, and actually, because I came to Westwood from Lands of Lore and Corandia, I was largely unaware of the RTS side. So when I started researching what happened to Westwood many, many years later, whatever happened, and I found out that EA had picked them up, it weirded me out, because to me that didn't make sense at all, because to me they were an adventure game studio.
Right.
But that's totally not
No.
where they were.
Dune 2 was like, landmark real-time strategy game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's interesting to me, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there that I have not read all of about the death of the adventure game, and I feel like we've just seen LucasArts kind of get dismantled, and Westwood Studios is clearly not making adventure games anymore, and now it's mostly indie games if you're finding an adventure game. So I feel like
or a Telltale game. Or a Telltale game.
Right.
I mean,
So
brought the genre back.
Right. And I feel like the industry decided that it wasn't a genre they wanted to do. And now it's sort of coming back because tablets are so well suited for that style of game. So that's been nice. It's nice to see that resurgence. And I actually wonder if I would love to actually see the stats on people buying the old Westwood, like the Cornudia games and Lands of Lore. Like, are they actually finding their way back into these old great games, or are they just moving forward with tablet games?
I mean, if you look at the each game at Good Old Games, that website, gog.com, has user reviews and everything. If you look at those, I think many of them are posted by people who haven't played the game before.
Mm-hmm.
So, so at least some people are finding these old gems and then posting reviews about them on GOG.
Yeah. It would be interesting to see like the reviews side by side, people who remember these old games versus, and I also, I feel like there's probably a specific type of person that goes on GOG rather, it's a specific type of player perhaps that goes and looks for these old games. Well, there's probably two specific types. There's the people like me who are like, I want to go play that old game again. And then there's I'm sure people who are finding it new, but I wonder how they're getting there. It would be an interesting question. It would be an interesting survey to do. How did you, is this because your big sister played it, or is this because you're interested in the genre, or, whatever?
Yeah. Or if they just found it through The Witcher.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever it is, I think that would be an interesting question. And actually, I wonder if that would inform how they take to those old school games. Like, so Day of the Tentacle just got re-released, I feel like, for iPad. So I feel like I need to go look at the reviews on that now and see what people think now, because that was one of my favorite games. That's a whole other well-played game. That's another one of my favorite games from the past. And the all the Monkey Islands and all that. I played all those things.
Yeah.
So we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, we should probably cut some of all this stuff. But thank you. So again, I'm Mark Chen.
And I'm Melissa Peterson.
And this was a Let's Play video of Lands of Lore, where we basically talked about the game as Melissa was playing it, and hopefully it was informative. Hopefully it's obvious that both of us love this game, and it's sort of a genre-defining moment, I think, in the sort of style of role-playing game.
Definitely agree.
And when you play, you're never playing alone.
Because you can't. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.